So I thought it was about time to make a workshop air cleaner. So I just finished making this, and I thought I'd talk about it a little bit. It took me a few days to make, and I didn't end up spending really anything on it. That can be different for different people, but I just happened to have enough stuff laying around to make it, and it works pretty well, so I thought I'd talk about it. You start with taking this frame off, which fits on sort of like the top of a box, and this just retains the filter in place. It's held on by two knobs. This is some oak scrap from when I did my stair treads, just some cut-offs with 3/8 inch nuts pressed into them. And that screws onto two 3/8 inch pieces of threaded rod, and that's what holds the frame on. And this whole thing lifts off to open up the filter. And I think I have 3 pieces of oak and 1 piece of poplar. These are all scraps I pulled out of my bin. And then this is 1/4 inch plywood and glued onto the edges. No fancy joinery here, just a miter joint, and then these two are butted together and glued on, but it makes a lid with some depth to it, so it fits around the top of the box, and it creates a seal with some felt glued into place here, and the felt is kind of compressible, and the edge of the filter presses into it nicely, and it creates a nice airtight gap, relatively airtight. These two are pieces of threaded rod which are tapped and filled with glue, and that keeps them in very, very firmly, so I don't think they're going to come out. The motor assembly, these are 3 pieces of 4/4 or 1 inch Douglas fir, and they're just laminated together. You can see the layers right there. I cut 3 pieces into rings that are the same diameter, inside and outside, and then glued them together, and then sanded them all, and then also made 1 more ring, which is 3/4 inch oak. And that one has these ears cut into it, which provide a space for bolts to go through to hold the whole thing onto the back of the case here. The back of the case is the luan back of an old bookshelf, like from the 70s or 80s, which was kind of falling apart, but this piece was still usable. The motor is a little shaded pole motor, which actually came from our old microwave. Before I threw it out, I pulled whatever useful components I could off of it, and these shaded pole motors are really reliable induction motors that will just go for a really long time. This is a strain relief for where the power cord enters the fan housing. That's just made of a piece of wood that's cut in half with a hole drilled in the center, and then 2 screws to clamp down on the cord, and then it's screwed onto the side of the fan housing, and that works pretty well. The cord doesn't move at all. This is just a little wire retainer, wire clamp that holds the wire in place from moving, cut on the bandsaw from a piece of wood. And the switch, it is standard wiring as you would expect for switching. I'm not going to get into too much detail there because people like to nitpick that sort of thing, but it's wired the right way. The cord, including this section and this section, is from our basement dehumidifier, which stopped working and we've since replaced, but it's a nice heavy-duty power cord. Worked really well for this application, and it's grounded. The 4 bolts, these 4 bolts that hold the fan housing onto the back of the case go through holes drilled in this piece of 1x that I made into a ring, and that clamps the luan backing from the old bookshelf between this and the fan housing, so it gives it a lot more strength and keeps the fan housing from wobbling. And then also these two pieces of 1x provide more stiffness. These things, these were in my junk drawer, and I don't know what they came from, but it takes these square nuts, but these retainers engage the edge of the circle here, and then also I had to cut in these notches to fit these things, but it's got two little wings here and here and keep it from rotating, and it keeps the nut from rotating, so the bolt can screw in easily. So that sandwiches the piece of Luan between this and the fan housing and makes it stay on there pretty sturdily. This block of wood was just, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, this block of wood I added to give some more backing for the switch that's on the other side to screw into. The sides of the case are pieces of 3/4 inch plywood, and not very good plywood too, but I wanted to use it up. And it had one smooth side. The inside is kind of crappy, the other side, but that's okay. It actually ended up looking kind of nice with some water-based poly on the outside. And these are more oak cutoffs from the stair treads I did recently, and they're just glued in to the sides of the plywood at the right depth to accommodate the compressible seal here, the felt seal, and the filter, and make it so that the filter sticks up above the edge of the housing by about 1/8 of an inch, which makes it so that the cover definitely engages the top of the filter and pushes down on it. And then the whole thing sticks to the I-beam that runs through the middle of the basement workshop with these two magnetic strips, which these are freebies from Harbor Freight, and they're intended to stick tools to. So you screw this to a wall or something, or your workbench, and stick screwdrivers or pliers or scissors or whatever to it. Well, I wasn't using these for that. I was probably going to throw them out. So it worked nicely for this. I just screwed the two to the top of this thing, and that holds it to the I-beam very securely. So there's no chance of it falling down, no matter how badly that fan would ever vibrate, which it doesn't anyway, but you can remove it easily by twisting the thing off the ceiling in this way, and then it will release at least one side so you can pull it down, but it holds very, very securely from being pulled straight down. And I've even knocked into it once or twice on the bottom of the unit this way or that way, and it wobbled a bit but didn't fall down. So I'll put this fan back on. And that's it all together. The whole thing I just went over with a few coats of water-based polyurethane because it's not going to get impacted very much. It just makes it look a little bit nicer, and it's a little bit easier to wipe dust off of it. And water-based urethane is just very easy to use. How does it work? Pretty well. I've only been running it for about a week or so now, and it definitely makes a difference. And I leave it running for a while before I start working on anything, and then for a while after I'm done. And I don't have a dust counter or anything like that, nothing sophisticated, but the surfaces that I wiped off, there's much, much less dust than there used to be. So I'm pretty happy with it, especially for free. Okay, so here it is up on the ceiling again. And flip the switch on. And there it works. Thanks for watching.